Hi,
Hi,
Nick.
Øyvind. How you doing?
I am well. How are you?
I'm very good as well. And you're joining us from Norway?
I am indeed at the office, as you can see. Not very crowded, but still at an office, which is great. How about you?
Yeah, I'm also in the office here in Seoul in Gangnam, and yeah, it's also I'm here by myself, which is great. So I have my own private recording studio for 30 minutes.
Top floor. Very good, Nick.
So cool. So yeah, we're here to talk about product market fit, and yeah, we spoke a little bit about this the other day, but we're going to get into it, a bit deeper right now, and kind of just talk a bit about how we are, how we approach product market, more like, how our thinking about this topic has changed over the last several years. We've both been running SaaS businesses for several years. Chartmogul around nearly 7 years, whereby I think it's something same ballpark.
Yeah.
And the kind of evolution of the thinking behind product market fit has changed a great deal. So I think let's just kick things off by, I'll let you go first, Øyvind. Is just, maybe tell us just briefly, like, what is whereby, and for those of you, for the few people that don't know, and also, how do you think about product market fit and how your thinking has evolved over the years?
Yeah, thanks, Nick. So I think the key thing for me is that it's constantly just evolving, right? And at Whereby, we see this as not a place that you don't nail it once and then you have it and you can rest on those laurels and just do activities, right? But you have to make sure that it evolves with the business. So Whereby is for those that don't know, is an extremely simple and easy to use meetings, video conferencing product, right? That's what we're most famous for. However, we have another part of our business that is growing super fast now, where we allow customers to embed video capabilities into their own apps and workflows. And for us, the interesting part is when you have two very specific products, but they are fundamentally different on how you look at the market and how you segment it. We actually spend a tremendous amount of time trying to find and make sure we keep product market fit. So for us, the key thing for me is that it's just constantly evolving, right? Like we review those things almost on a quarterly basis to make sure that we are still where we need to be. But how would you define what you have done at Chartmogul, Nick?
Yeah, so I think it's similar. It's kind of like there's a few ways we think about it. It's almost like you could draw a grid. So Chartmogul, I think a lot of SaaStock viewers might know who we are. We do subscription analytics. So if you're a SaaS business or any kind of subscription business, and you're using like a Stripe or Chargebee or Recurly or something for your subscription billing, you can plug that into our product, and we give you a lot of SaaS metrics and SaaS analytics, subscription analytics. So we're a SaaS company, and yeah, how do we think about product market fit? So it's definitely evolved, right? Like a lot. And I think there's a few things that come into play when you think about product market fit. So it's like product market fit is just like, okay, people really want to find your product useful. They really want it. They're going to keep using it. They're going to pay for it. This is to me, it's a very basic, almost very basic thing. I mean, that's not the greatest. There's better definitions than that. I just made that up as I was saying it. But I think for us, it comes down to like customer segments, and then depending on the customer segment, we have varying degrees of product market fit. And then the other part is also onboarding, right? So for certain types of customer, it's very easy to onboard. For other types of customer, if they're not using Stripe or Recurly for their subscription billing, it's much harder to onboard. They have to use our APIs. It might require a commitment of, a couple of weeks of engineering to onboard. Is it really a strong product market fit for those customers? It is if they're willing to put in the work, but how many of them are, right? So that's also an important topic. And the other thing is, I think, competition as well. Like when we launched Chartmogul, there was really no way to get your SaaS metrics if you're using like Stripe or Braintree or Recurly or Chargebee. You had to like either do it in Excel or something like that, or you'd use a product like Chartmogul. So there was really no competition. But now Stripe and Recurly and these products, they do have some built-in SaaS metrics, which are granted more basic than what we have. They're simpler, but for a very early stage startup, they might suffice. So it's like, do we have product market fit for those super early stage startups? Maybe we do, but that kind of like need to buy us or use us is not as strong as it was when we launched the product. So when we launched the product, there was a ton of like latent demand, like demand for our product just waiting there from those users. So that's kind of interesting. But I think the strongest thing these days, though, we kind of built our product to be, as you were doing, always chasing product market fit. We built more sophisticated analytics tools into the product so that the larger businesses, they once they outgrow the kind of native analytics of their billing system, they kind of upgrade onto something like ours. But the way we think about it now is a bit really on customer segment. It's like the size of the business is a big one. Like, do we have product market fit for a $1 billion ARR SaaS company? No. Do we have product market fit for a $10 million ARR SaaS business? Yes, absolutely. And that's like our really, and then there's like different types of subscription business. So for B2B SaaS business, we have very strong product market fit for, and then on the other, then there's physical box deliveries, like monthly gift box, like Dollar Shave Club type businesses. That's also a subscription business. It also works with our product, but it's very weak product market fit because those companies, they care about different things. They care about inventory, delivery, like all these things that we don't really track well. So, and then there's this kind of spectrum. It's like, okay, what if you're a mobile consumer app subscription? Well, yeah, we have pretty strong product market fit, but it's not quite as strong as B2B SaaS, where we have really strong product market fit for B2B SaaS businesses, sort of between 0 and 100 million ARR. So this is kind of, and we kind of know like, okay, if we want to go in, get stronger product market fit in mobile app subscription businesses, we'll have to build these things. Or if we want to go up market in B2B SaaS to, public B2B SaaS companies, we'll have to build these things. And it's kind of it's always a choice. Like, do you kind of go wide or do you go narrow and focus more? So anyway, I talked for a long time, but that's kind of.
No, but it's really, really interesting. And I think we should probably dive a little bit into this, right? Because what you and I discussed as well is that we actually have two very different approaches to this just based on the kind of companies that we are. And we should probably tell the audience and those listening that obviously the advice that you hear from me and Nick today would have to be seen in the context in which it's given, and not to mention the fact that we are businesses are also at different stages, right? So what works for one business might not be directly applicable. I've done that mistake plenty of times. I've listened to some advice and it just didn't turn out to work for us. But in terms of Nick, so you have a very clearly defined user base in a sense, right? You have a very, that there are certain customers that you can't go after. At Whereby, we actually struggle with something that for you might seem as a luxury, but for us is a problem. And that's the fact that everyone in the world can use video conferencing, right? Any company size, any team, any individual or group of individuals, right? So we struggle to actually nail down where is it that we are strongest, right? What is it that we're doing that we can do better than the likes of Zoom and Google Meet, for instance, right? So we've even tried to balance our product market fit studies with a jobs to be done framework, right? And an ideal customer profile, etc. But because it's so vast and expansive, it makes it really difficult for us to nail it and then start marketing towards it and just be very successful at a smaller niche. So it's in a way, I'm envious of you because you have something that I think is easier to define, and you're probably envious at us because it's a bigger overall market. How do you view that?
Right. I mean, that's always the case. It's like I always think, oh, if I did another SaaS, I would want to make it like any company in the world can use it, like a Notion or a Slack or a Whereby or whatever, and then don't have to worry too much. But then you hit that issue of like, especially in video conferencing, right? There's multiple players. How do you differentiate? Where is your strong point? Which is for us is not so much. So we have we don't have that issue so much. We have very clearly defined, core customer, and we don't have a whole lot of competition. So we're easily, and I believe we're the market, most sophisticated product doing subscription analytics. So our competition is purely the internal BI team, like the internal data team, the internal engineering team wanting to build it themselves versus using a product like ours. So we don't have to worry too much about differentiation because it's so differentiated, because it's a SaaS product versus, hey, here's Looker and here's data warehouse and figure it out, so it's so differentiated from that approach, that, it's a sort of different approach in general to kind of getting that strong product market fit, working towards that, I guess.
Yeah, no, it's I totally hear you. And I think for us, what I've been trying to do is also just to see what we can actually do to narrow that scope, right? And see what is it, because from a feature perspective, a product roadmap perspective, you end up trying to be everything for everyone, right? And we all know, building these businesses, that's the biggest mistake that you can make, right? We have to stay focused and make sure that the resources that we have are deployed the most efficiently way possible. But you mentioned something earlier, Nick, that I find really interesting and something that I personally struggle with, and that's how we make the priorities when we also then look at in where we have product market fit, right? How do you then segment those customers, right? Do you prefer to look at retention more so than annual contract value, for instance, with those customers? Because I struggle there. Like, I always want to maximize the retention, but retention also takes a long while before you actually have, or fairly long time before you have conclusive evidence that this is a customer that is exceptionally worth retaining, in a sense.
Yeah, I think we just kind of realized, like through retention over years, that over a period of several years, that like, if we were going to get a monthly box delivery company, that there would be a high chance that they would churn. Whereas if we get a B2B SaaS, SMB B2B SaaS company, it'd be very, very, very low chance they churn, and some of those customers we keep now for 6 years or whatever. So yeah, I think that's the way we approached it. And you're right, like, sometimes you get a big AC, you can, if your sales team, they can do a good job and sign a big deal with a customer that's not a great fit, but I think for us, I guess we kind of just want everything to compound and the churn to be low, and for people to use the product more or less forever, right? That's like the aim for us. So that's definitely, we definitely focus more on the retention side. Yeah.
And it makes total sense, right? And I think this is also where we differ a bit, right? Because with us, the product that we offer is also fairly generic, right? And the switching cost is quite low. So for the audience that is listening, you have to look at all these things when you define and decide how your strategy is around product market fit, right? Because I see, for instance, for our side, on one side of our company, we have a traditional B2B sales process. Whereas on Whereby Meetings, which is the most famous service we have, that's where you see that we have a lot of product-led growth initiatives, right? So users sign up, they onboard themselves, etc. And those two are fundamentally different in how we work to achieve product market fit. And we talked briefly about it in the beginning, right? But in terms of how should we all look at this when we talk about this more as a journey and not a place that you like, I think we would all love to say that we have product market fit and it's going to stay like that for the next 10 years. But obviously that's not true. So how often do you at Chartmogul as well take a look at how you're tracking against that and making sure that you remain ahead of your competition? Because you have big competition with deep pockets if they decide to really go after your market.
I mean, you have to have. So I guess we kind of have a fairly good sense of the areas where we're weaker, and if you there's just some things like we don't support that some subscription businesses do, or some types of subscription businesses want, and so we kind of know what those are. And so it's just a kind of question of ruthlessly prioritizing based on demand. And sometimes we do have to stay focused, like and it might not be as good if you're a B2C business, right? Consumer, because we decided B2B SaaS the core, but sometimes okay, you might have a really big customer in B2C, so you want to kind of see, okay, can you make it work for them? Can you keep them? But I think we reassess it all the time. I think it's not something where we maybe once a year when we do our annual planning, or twice a year when we do the mid-year planning, we kind of take a step back and look at things. But at the same time, I would say almost our entire product roadmap and pretty much all the work we do is related to achieving the vast majority, right? Like some work you do is just like good practice, like you should add, better security features to your app and things like that, which is not necessarily lined up with, product market fit for that segment or whatever. But it's the majority of the product development what we do is basically chasing product market fit for some segment. And for us, we've decided that one of the core things we want to be able to do as a company is start off with a SaaS business when it's just getting started, a B2B SaaS business, and to be able to grow with them until they IPO 100 million ARR and beyond. And we do have some companies where this has happened. We do have some $100 million ARR companies and beyond, but it's not as many as we'd like. At some point between kind of 30 and 60 million ARR, the product market fit weakens a little bit, and they're like, oh, we need a bit more flexibility than this, and they build out, their BI team decides at some point, okay, maybe we should build this themselves and we don't want that to happen. So a lot of the things we're building is to avoid that, is basically to counter that from happening. So that we kind of decided that as a mission for us as a company, to be able to grow with a SaaS business all the way from founding to IPO and beyond, so that they don't outgrow us. So a lot of our product development is focused around that. And so I think that's why basically everything, you could say it's going up market in a way. That's what it's traditionally been called. And I guess, anyway, sorry.
No, but I this is fascinating, right? Because I think we could keep coming back to this, that the thing is that you have to decide this at the company level. What sort of strategy do you want around it, right? Because it directly impacts what activities you put in place. I think it's really interesting. We call it going upstream, right, and going into the enterprise. But you could just as well and easily decide that, well, those companies that actually go there, we view them as a major success, and we thank them for their business and for being valuable customers. But we want to remain in this sweet spot right here, where we know that we excel, right? And rather try and expand that customer base. That would be one strategy, right? But there is another strategy that also says that you can go further upstream, so the annual contract value increases. And not one is not better than the other, right? It depends on where your business is at, what you're trying to achieve, and not to mention what you can actually put in your product roadmap from a technical perspective that allows you to do one or the other better than the competition, right?
Right. Yeah. So I think one point you made right at the start, which was like when we're introducing ourselves, was something like, what works at one company shouldn't work at another. It doesn't always work at another. I think that's a key point, because so prior to, I'll bring this up because this is prior to starting Chartmogul, I was a member of the team at Zendesk, and I was at Zendesk for like 5 years, and I was in the commercial side, so we're doing the kind of selling and then making sales teams and stuff like that. And that company, that like definitively had like product market fit, like for a huge swath of the market, like for a huge number of companies. And that was so it was actually really useful when I started Chartmogul, because I could kind of know, what does product market fit feel like? What does it look like? Zendesk definitely had it on many fronts. I think, and I think they hit it on, when I joined in 2009, they weren't really great for enterprise, and they added the enterprise features over time. But they had a huge kind of market in that there was an existing market there, but it was on-premise software. So you had things like HANA and Remedy, these like on-premise software that were quite expensive and quite hard to configure and use and stuff. And they were the first kind of true SaaS product. So we'd save them a ton of money. It would be easy to set up. And they had the onboarding. Like the onboarding is such a critical part of it. So with Chartmogul, you have to get a whole bunch of data in the right format. So that means that we kind of hope that they're using Stripe or Recurly or ChargeBee or PayPal or one of these systems. But Zendesk, their onboarding is the email forwarding. And email is like this universal technology that's been around for 40 years or something. Maybe more. It's been around for a really long time. And so it hasn't really, so basically every single company has like a help at support@mycompany.com. And that was a really beautiful thing there, that the onboarding pathway, the onboarding journey was identical for every single type of business that we ever spoke to. And so the whole
That's exactly right. Like when you get to that level, then that's the holy grail in a sense, right? I see we're coming up on time, Nick. So we have to wrap up. Any final things before we say goodbye? I want to say for 20 minutes blows past. So I think both Nick and I have lots more to share. If people are interested, feel free to reach out. We could probably talk about this for hours and hours. But any final words from you, Nick?
No, I just think, like the point of reaching product market fit, I don't think it's really something that you ever, like if you reach it briefly, you got to keep chasing it. I mean, you don't want to end up like Nokia had it. They clearly lost it at some point. Like it's just a constant thing that you just have to keep chipping away at methodically. And I think that's quite fun, actually.
Like everything else in SaaS, it's a constant process and a constant iteration. All right. It was great seeing you, Nick.
Yeah, you too.
Yeah. Cheers. All right. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.